Welcome to Off Court Cuts with myself, Greg Rusedski, Kevin Palmer from Tennis 365, and Ashley Neaves, the tennis mentor. Now, Kevin, you spent a day at Wimbledon with Andy Murray, and like you like to say, the stars behind the scenes at the executive suites. Well, Ashley was on the hard courts, doing all the stuff and coaching, doing the hard work where you were sipping champagne. What a life Kevin Palmer leads.
Finally met a British star, Ashley, right? One of the big names in British tennis. Spent the... no, great. Andy came into the IBM box and spoke for about 20 minutes. He was very professional, as he always is, and very good to spend time with him. He's a great guy. I asked him if he's going to come on the show to promote his podcast or his new YouTube channel, and he kind of sort of promised he'd come on. So it's up to you, Greg, to follow this up and make sure this happens.
What do you mean? You're the one who's got it saying it live to you. Did you not record that conversation, Kevin, as a professional journalist?
That could have been the script. That could have been the contract forevermore, right? Yeah.
Well, Ashley, I know you're going to introduce the show today. So tell us what our topics and what we're going to talk about today at Wimbledon and day 3.
So day 3, Wimbledon, lots went on, as always, in the first few days. Lots of players getting knocked out and some interesting matches. But first up, we're going to talk about Sinner's match. He didn't look on top form. He was playing Nuno Borges, who had a good match in fairness. But he's not looking great. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk a little bit about the Djokovic match. He did look great. He had a good matchup against Tsitsipas, so we're going to cover that. We're going to cover Andreeva, who loses her cool in defeat. She was playing Krejcikova, who actually is going to be on the show in a couple of weeks' time. I had a good interview with her, so we'll see how deep into the draw Krejcikova goes, because she is a former Wimbledon champion and French Open champ. And then finally, we're going to talk about Dan Evans, who hits out at Wimbledon over the wildcard decision. But first, we're going to cover the Sinner match, Kevin, and I know you were there watching it live in the flesh. What did you think of it?
I don't know what you guys think, but it feels like something's not quite right with Jannik Sinner at the moment. I mean, he's still hitting the ball amazingly well. He's still kind of looks like he should get through these early round matches, but there's something that sort of aura he had maybe 3 or 4 months ago when he was wiping everybody out. He was winning matches, love and one. He was just sort of cleaning up really quickly. He never looked threatened. Something's not quite right. I wonder whether the situation in Paris with the heat going out early, whether it's just sort of rattled him a little bit, taking him out of his stride. He doesn't look like he's comfortable on the tennis court at the moment. He's looking up to his box more than ever. He's looking for sort of words of encouragement. And Nuno Borges had a backhand at I think 5-4 in the second set. If he'd have taken that out second set to Borges, I'm not saying he would have gone on to win by any means. I'm fancying Sinner to get certainly to the semi-finals, as we've said, probably against Novak. It just feels though, Greg, that he's not quite there at the moment. Maybe we're setting the bar too high for him, and it's natural there's going to be a dip occasionally. But thoughts on Sinner today? Not his best performance.
Well, I think he's better than his round 1. I think what I was impressed with is, as you said, Borges 5-3 up, served for the set, should have closed the deal out. But Sinner got a little bit lucky, but took advantage of that to get the break back and win in straight sets. And for me, when you're a great champion and you're not playing your best and you find a way to win still in 3 sets, that's a good sign. The concern I have for Sinner is week 2, the temperature goes hot, really hot like it was last week. By then, he'll probably be in the 4th round. He'll be flowing. He'll be ready to go. But the question marks will be, can he manage the heat and the temperature? That's the thing I think he's most fearful about. And also, he's not a natural grass court player, even though he's won Wimbledon. It's the surface that has taken him a little bit more time to get used to. So I'm not concerned about his tennis. Every round, he's going to get better. He's going to build like Djokovic has done in the years past. And he had such an incredible run, losing only 1 match in Paris and winning every single Masters series, barely losing games and sets. So, you're going to have a little dip, but he's on the rebound. Be careful when you talk about him, not in a positive light, but he's still winning. All of a sudden, he's going to hit peak form. But to me, second week, we'll find out if he's found a solution to the heat problem.
I mean, on day 1 after his match, I said that Sinner was still my favourite for the tournament. I said Djoko was my number 2. They've got to face each other potentially in the semi-finals. And I said after he won that first match and managed to get through it, sometimes these great champions need a bit of a battle to feel their way into a tournament. And I wasn't that impressed with his level, to be honest with you today. It was lower than you would expect from Sinner, but he got the win and he's through to another match. And I anticipate that he's going to face Novak, and that will be very, very interesting if they both get through, because Novak was on fire. And I would say that one thing about Sinner, when we're talking about his favourite surface, he loves the hard courts. I do think his game suits grass. He's got his serve is great. He hits his ball pretty flat and pretty big. But one thing is, when he mistimes his shots, which he was doing today, because he's got such a fast swing, when he mistimes his shots, they go very wrong. And he's not a player like an Alcaraz, who has a massive armory of different shots that he can hit. Alcaraz can mix up. He can moon ball. He can chip the ball. He can drop shot. He can hit heavy. He can hit flat. Generally plays slightly more two-dimensionally, and I think sometimes when the ball's traveling fast and he's going big with his shots, when he's mistiming it, it's a little bit more tricky for him to find his way back into the match, but he gets the wins. And I think the mental side of his game is his biggest strength. Showed that again today, even through winning ugly. But let's get on to the Djokovic match. So Djokovic faced Tsitsipas. It was almost like watching tennis 10 years ago, watching these two play on the court. And in my opinion, I'm hearing the pundits talking about Tsitsipas being on the decline, which naturally he has been over the last few years. I actually didn't think he played terribly today. Djokovic was just on another level. And the news from Tsitsipas's corner is he's ditched his dad from his coaching team, which I think, if Tsitsipas can continue with his new coaching team, I think we're going to see some positive changes, because I think his dad and the setup that he had was holding him back a little bit. And the coach that he's got now, that he had in his box, was a coach called Thomas Perrin, who is a coach at the Mouratoglou Academy and a friend of mine, actually. And couple of weeks ago when I was at the academy, I bumped into Thomas, and I had a chat with him and talking about players that he's been working with, because he was with the Fruhvirtova sisters before. And I said, are you going to be in London for the grass court season? He said, yeah, I'll be there. But he was very shady about who he was going to be coaching. And yeah, saw him in Tsitsipas's box. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that partnership goes. I really hope that it's going to last at least a few weeks, because I think Tsitsipas needs a bit of a change. What do you guys think?
Well, I think with Tsitsipas, I still think he's not where he needs to be. I feel like the backhand is so easy to break down. I think Djokovic broke the backhand down really early, got an early break up 3-1. Djokovic has an unbelievable record against him, 12-2. He is not scared of Stefanos. He knows exactly how to play him. I think for Stefanos, the coaching change and being more independent is a huge positive. But I would like to see from Stefanos, I felt like he had the wrong game plan. He didn't serve and volley in the beginning. He didn't chip and charge. He didn't put pressure. If you give Novak a rhythm and let him control from the baseline, Novak knows I go, okay, 2 into the forehand, then quick into the backhand, or just straight into the backhand whenever I have an issue. So for him, this is the perfect matchup for Novak. And yes, Novak looked good, but you have certain opponents you love to play. But I have to mention one guy in his section before Kevin goes with his opinion about Djokovic. Auger-Aliassime. It's Canada Day today, okay? And for Canadians out there, Auger-Aliassime looked very, very good. And I've been talking to the players at the restaurants today, a lot of the French players, a lot of the other players, and everybody's saying how slow the grass courts are this year. They said conditions are super slow this week compared to what they've had in the lead up. Yes, conditions will get hot in the second week and that'll change things. But right now for the baseliners, it's working really, really well because they're having more time. And maybe that could be one of the reasons Sinner's trying to overhit the ball a little bit as well. And you have to let those points progress longer. Well, in the second week, you won't have to do so. But I'd love to hear your opinion, Kevin, on what you think of Novak today.
They're calling it vintage Djokovic tonight. At the age of 39, it's quite amazing what he's doing. I mean, I think we thought coming in, Greg, that he was a little bit undercooked. We hadn't practiced on, any grass court tournaments. Not that he normally does that, but at the age of 39, going out early in Paris, potentially he could have thought about playing a grass court warm-up event. But he almost uses the early rounds at Wimbledon to get himself into gear. And while Tsitsipas is obviously an opponent he loves to play, and he kind of knows he's not going to lose against him, you would say at 39 that could change. The balance of power could shift if Novak was on the wane at all. But he just looks so slick. He looks moving so well. And having seen Djokovic and Sinner today, you would say on today's evidence, Sinner is a little bit behind Novak, which is impossible to believe. But I think by the time we get to week 2, depending on what you said, Greg, about heat, I would expect Sinner to be in full flow. But Novak, very, very impressive, you have to say, for a guy of his age. We saw Serena Williams the previous night on centre court kind of struggling, which is understandable. At the age of 44, hasn't played a singles match in 4 years. But to be out there, Novak, doing what he's doing, the motivation is still there. And I felt like the love of the crowd was a little bit there as well, which hasn't always been at Wimbledon. I think people now respect that we're seeing one of the all-time greats of the game. He's not going to be here for that much longer. We should lap him up for as long as we can. I mean, it was just incredible just to see what he does, Greg. I mean, he doesn't wane at all, does he? He's got magic in his boots, that guy.
I've got to change something there. I was the one who said, watch out for Novak. He had enough tennis coming in Paris. I said, Fonseca beat him there. He didn't struggle with the heat. He's ready to go. He's ready for number 25, and he knows this is his best shot. He's beaten Sinner in Australia. No Alcaraz here. If having to go Sinner, Alcaraz is the toughest test in tennis, especially when both guys are healthy. So Novak here is trying to tie Federer with 8 titles. Wouldn't be surprised if he gets number 25, especially from today's performance.
One thing that was interesting to see in the middle of the match at one of the changeovers, he was winning quite comfortably against Tsitsipas, but he looked a little bit unstable on one of the points, almost like he slipped in his shoes. And when he sat down, he looked up at his box and he was doing this really weird sign language. And I was trying to work out what he was saying to his box. He was kind of like doing all these little moves, and it looked like he was trying to say that he's losing his footing and da 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 da. But it's a shame we can't play the footage on here for copyright reasons, but it was fascinating. So I might try and decipher what he was saying to his box. But in the game afterwards, he actually had a bit of a slip, and it looked like he turned his ankle. For most human beings, you'd sprain your ankle in that position. But Novak, being the beast that he is, he got up and carried on. And, sometimes he can make drama of these situations. But in this match, he was straight back to business and got the win. So it was interesting to see if that actually did any damage to his ankle in the next couple of matches, because, a sprain for somebody that's moving around the court like Novak is not good. But no, he looked fine afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, Novak had a tear in his stomach when he won the Australian Open that time, which was superhuman. And everybody wasn't believing him. He had a tear in his stomach, but then he showed everybody the scan to prove the fact that he had that stomach tear when he won the Australian Open. And don't forget, Jannik Sinner had a little bit of a scare in the opening round where he did that splits with his legs, which most people wouldn't get up from as well. So, they're super strong, super flexible. And if they have an injury, we will not be hearing a word about it when they step on for the next round match. Everything's good. I'm ready to go. No excuses. But we have to get into the biggest upset of the draw so far, the French Open champion, Mirra Andreeva, going out.
Is it an upset, though? I think if you
mean?
think about who she played against, so she played.
Well, she's the
Krejcikova.
French Open champion.
Yeah, I get that, but Krejcikova on the grass is.
No, I agree. I agree. The quality of the player, no question about it. But you have to say, when you lose the French Open champion, and Andreeva was in the quarters last year, so.
Yeah, true. I think that the key was actually the style that she went out in. She lost her temper a bit, didn't she? And I know, Kevin, you watched the post-match conference as well. What did you think?
Uncomfortable. I mean, look, this is a teenage kid who's hit the heights already, done amazing things in tennis. We had her coach, Conchita Martinez, on the show on Monday, which is absolutely brilliant interview. I don't know if you get a chance to watch it, please listen back. But I just think that Mirra isn't dealing very well when she loses, and that's fine. A lot of kids, you've got kids in your club, Ashley, and I'm sure, Greg, you've worked with people and seen people lose their temper. And, at my little girl's club, there's guys that don't like it when they lose. It doesn't matter if it's a wet Monday night and they're just playing first to 7, and it means a lot to people. And Mirra Andreeva is right out there in front of the world. Her press conference, she broke into tears. And I just think, sometimes these daily press conferences, I'm a member of the press, and, this might sound a bit weird coming from me, but sometimes there's not a lot to say. Now, last night or the previous night, Serena Williams didn't do her press conference, said she was injured and didn't want to come up. Now, that was one way you would think someone of her experience, her age, and, knows what she means to the sport. That might be her last appearance at Wimbledon. She probably should have done it. Should we be putting an 18-year-old who's clearly very, very upset in front of the press today? Not so sure. What are your thoughts, Greg, on daily press conferences? Because it was important back in the day, but I think that the world has changed a bit now with social media and whatever else, hasn't it?
Well, I think you've got to look from what country are, and you're the French Open champion as well. The other thing, you have the right to delay the press as long as you want. So you don't want to go in there emotional. I think you take more time. You can take 2, 3 hours if you want. Settle down, have a meal, talk to your team. Don't go up there emotionally charged. I've done it many times. I've said many stupid things in press conferences. I wish I would have taken more time. I remember the year in 2002, I said Sampras won't win the title, then he wins the US Open. So we've all done it. We've all made mistakes in our life. And I love her. I think she's great. I think Conchita is one of the best coaches in the business. She fought her heart out. Let's not forget about it. Krejcikova served for the match 5-3. She broke her to get back on serve, saved a couple of match points. She was fighting tooth and nail to try to find a solution, got broken 6-4. So you understand the disappointment. You understand the anger. You understand the frustration because she's given 110%. She cannot always control her emotions out there, and that's absolutely fine. But when your player goes out there, goes on the court, and gives it all, it's going to be painful. That's why you have that press conference with somebody crying. If they didn't care, they wouldn't cry. They'd show up like, okay, I lost, so what? Who cares? But that's going to make her great. And she's going to find a way to balance it out. As she talked about when she won the French Open, I want to be more like Roger Federer. But that's not her natural personality. That's not who she is. But she's finding solutions. She's working with people. So give her a break. To me, even though she lost, it's not I said it was a big upset just because of the ranking, not because of the player she's playing. That was the match of the day in the women's draw. We knew there was a possible upset on the cards because of Krejcikova's class, but her ranking has dropped off the planet because she hasn't had the results. But she is a Wimbledon champion, she is a French Open champion, and that was a tough draw. And also, this is her first slam after being crowned one of the youngest um, French Open champions we've had, who's a teenager in a long time in the women's game. So for me, I say let's not give her a hard time. Let's look at all the positives. Conchita has done a fantastic job, and they will have the discussion. They will find solutions, and she'll come back stronger, great again. And we still want to see robots playing tennis. My generation, when I was playing, I don't want to see politically correct answers all the time. I want to see humor. I want to see personality. I want to see emotion. You had Martina and Chrissy, which the documentary was out this week about both of them battling with cancer, and you have Chrissy right now, who again, unfortunately, has cancer again. But that documentary showed their rivalry and the different personalities and the way they handled things. And everybody has their own journey. And what she's done in her career is brilliant. And she's going to just get better. What were you like as a teenager, Ashley? What were you like as a teenager, Kevin? I know I wasn't perfect.
Yeah, and I think the thing we've got to remember is most tennis players out there of her age are still exploring their emotions on the Futures Tour, right? On the lower level tournaments where they're not being watched by the world, and they're out there losing the plot and figuring things out and improving their tennis, improving their emotional control and until they get onto the tour. Well, she's straight in front of hundreds of thousands of people watching, and it's brutal, and I do think that the organizations that the people that sort out these interviews do need to have a bit of flex when it comes to making decisions as to if they need to do it or not. And I don't think she should have had to do that. I think it should be optional. If she wants to, if she feels up to it, great. But if she's not feeling up to it, as clearly she wasn't, I don't think she should have to. So yeah, I think some flex needs to be made in those situations. But we're going to move on to Dan Evans, who's taken a bit of a hit at Wimbledon about the wildcard decision. And I'm gonna throw it to you first, Kevin, because I think you know a little bit more about it, and then over to Greg.
Well, I think bit of context. So the LTA sort of put forward 6 names, I believe it is, of the wild cards, so the 8 wild cards. They wanted to give a wild card to Grigor Dimitrov, who got to the quarterfinals last year, got injured against Sinner when he was about to beat him, or looked very close to beating him. And I think that was a good decision. The other wild card was Stan Wawrinka, who's a 3-time Grand Slam champion. Fair enough, it's his last year. They wanted to give him a wild card. Personally, I think Dan Evans could and should have got one, maybe. But the one proviso I'd say today is that Dan has been playing kind of a part-time year in a way. He's not been playing full scheduled tournaments. He's only kind of played here and there, didn't really play during the grass court season, was in qualifying on his own ranking, so they didn't feel they needed. I'm sure they would have given him a wild card into the qualifying at Roehampton, didn't quite get through. And the only slight thing I would say about today, I was up in the box there today looking down on the courts, and I could see Dan Evans on court 15 playing with Henry Searle in the doubles, and I just felt potentially, I know it's early days, they could have maybe put him on court 18, could have maybe put him on like 2 or 3 just at the end of the day, giving him a little plaque at the end, whatever it might have been. It kind of just felt like he lost at 12 o'clock, first match on. That was the end of it, and he was gone. And there was a load of people trying to queue to get on that court and sort of say their thank yous to a guy who's really given so much to British tennis. But he didn't hold back in the press conference, Greg. He kind of had a pop at everyone he could find, and that's what Dan's always done. He doesn't hold back, does he?
Well, the question you got to ask yourself, how many British males in the last 20 years have been in the top 30 in the world? That's one of the questions. And also you got to think to yourself, okay, he wanted to retire at Wimbledon. Tim Henman, myself, we decided we were going to retire at the Davis Cup. Andy Murray announced his retirement at Wimbledon, and they did one retirement ceremony for him when he lost his opening singles match. And then he said he was playing the mixed doubles match and another match and this match and that match. And it kept going on and on. But he got what he wanted out of the situation. Okay, for Dan, I don't understand why the LTA would not try to go to the club and say, okay, we have a rule for the tournaments, for example, all British tournaments, because I was looking for a wild card for my player, Mpetshi Perricard, who's from France. So was Grigor Dimitrov, so was Stan Wawrinka. But there was no chance at Queen's or Nottingham. There's a rule, only British players get them. That's it. Doesn't matter what country you're from. But then coming to Wimbledon, it's their choice with the suggestions from the LTA. Since that was going to be his last tournament ever played, wouldn't it be good to back Dan to get his last ever tournament at Wimbledon, make a ceremony, no matter what court he played on, and make a big deal out of it? Because, let's not forget, he's the guy who gave up 500 ranking points winning DC to play Olympics with certain Sir Andy Murray, and that's a big sacrifice when you're his ranking around 50 to 100 to do so 2 years ago at the Olympics. So I think it was a little bit of an own goal there. Yes, he hasn't been playing full time, but come on, how many British wild cards in the past have we had that don't have a chance to even win a match that get the wild cards in the last 20 or 30 years? So I would have loved to see getting the wild card, doing something for Dan, presenting him with something, I think would have been the right thing. And for him, it's kind of a funny way to go out because in qualies, he said he was happy to play qualies. And then all of a sudden he plays the doubles match and there's nothing made of it. And in Britain, we've been lucky to have Andy Murray. We've been lucky to have Jack Draper, Emma Raducanu, all these players. And if you go back to the generations before, we've always had some excellent tennis players. So it would have been nice to say, okay, thank you for your service. Well done at Wimbledon. Here's your wild card in singles. And we wish you well with the rest of whatever you decide to do with the rest of your life. Because right now he's working, I believe, with another British player by the name of Henry Seal, who is a junior Wimbledon finalist. So he's still going to be back in the game. So I kind of understand Dan's feeling of, it would have been nice for the club or somebody to do something for me, even though I haven't been playing a full schedule for the year. And that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, that's a wrap for today's episode of Off Court Cuts. We're going to be with you pretty much every day during the Wimbledon fortnight. This episode's about 20 minutes long, so a slightly longer one, but sometimes it might be 10 minutes. We're gonna wrap up each day and give you up-to-date info. So thanks as always for listening. We look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care.